Hello class. Today we're actually going to be doing the exercises or the questions in your assignment 2 of your resource booklet A, which is on page 25 and 26. Alright, so these questions are actually the reverse of sketching quadratic curves. So what you are doing is, given quadratic curves, you're going to be solving questions relating to the curves that they have drawn for you. Okay, so I'm going to start with question 5, right, because it is the hardest, I would say, for the entire exercise. And then once you understand this, you will definitely be able to do the rest. Okay, so if you look at this question here, the first thing that you have to identify is that the curve given is a set face, right? Once you have identified that it's a set face, the next thing you look at would be your quadratic equation. So in this case, it's a negative x square graph, which actually is going to tell you that it's a set face also. All right, and then of course you've got your px and constant q. Okay, and then they say that the graph cuts the x-axis at points A and B, and the coordinates of B is 2, 0. The graph also cuts the y-axis at C, and they say that the line of symmetry x equals to -1, right, is not shown in the graph. So what happens here is you should know by now that the line of symmetry is always in between the two x-intercept. So if you look at this, right, A and B are the x-intercepts, right? So the line of symmetry, which is x equals to -1, must be exactly where the center of the two x-intercepts are. Okay, so I'm going to draw for you. Okay, so this is x equals to -1. So from here, what you can have is you are able to identify that. Okay, you are able to identify that you have got the point B20 and this point -1. So you know that the x equals to -1 is the mirror line. Okay, so what we'll do here is we will look at the number of units from the mirror line, which is x equals to -1, to the point B and see how many units it is. So here, from 0 to 2 is actually 2 units, and from 0 to -1 is another 1 unit. So in total, on the right side of your mirror line is actually 3 units. Okay, please note that line of symmetry is actually the mirror line. So that would mean that on the left of your mirror line, that will also be 3 units. Okay, so since you know that this is actually 3 units, you start counting from -1, 3 units backwards. That would mean that you actually have the value of A to be -4. Alright, so you know that the x-intercepts are at -2 and -4 and 2, and then now they ask you to write down the coordinates. Okay, so you got to actually write it in coordinate form. You know that the x-intercept is -4 here, so the value of x is -4, and since they want coordinate, the value of y is just 0. Right, that answers part A. Now in part B, you're going to find the values of P and Q. Looking at the question, P and Q are actually the unknowns in the equation. Now, given the equation here, you may also come up with your own equation using the x-intercepts. Okay, so you know that your graph is going to be x bracket and another bracket in factorized form. All right, you do know that if you were to go backwards like the normal, right? If you are going to solve, okay, you're going to let y be 0 if you're going to be solving for your x-intercepts. So you will have like 2 brackets equals 0. This is solving for x-intercept. Okay, so y equals to 0. Now, if you're going to solve, you're going to get x equals to -4 or x equals to 2. So in this case, what you will do is you would have to remove this negative sign, or what I will say is multiply throughout by -1. Okay, so what you will have is just the two brackets equals to 0. Okay, I'm gonna just ignore this negative for now. Okay, so what we will have here is, how do you come out with this x equals to -4? It should come from x plus 4 equals to 0. So we're working backwards. Okay, here, how you get x equals to 2? It will be x take away 2 equals to 0. So that would mean from these two equations, you can put it back into the factorized form. So you have x plus 4 and x take away 2 to be 0. So meaning, you can put this back into the equation. So here, if you realize, we are working backwards, right? Backwards. So now you have the equation in factorized form. You got to compare it with the equation given. So in a way, what you're going to do is you're going to expand this. Okay, so for part B, okay, I'm going to write my working here. Okay, I know that my equation is y equals to negative x plus 4 and x take away 2. So I will be expanding this. You have x squared plus 4x take away 2x take away 8. Okay, of course you have to multiply in your negative. So you have negative x squared. Now this is going to give you positive 2x, but you multiply by -1. That gives you negative 2x, and then you have a positive 8. So now we're going to compare with y equals to negative. If you look back the question, it is negative x squared plus bx plus q. Okay, so you make the comparison now. These two, they are the same equation. Okay, so it's the same. Meaning to say, the value of q is equals to 8, and the value of your p, right, is actually -2. Right, so that answers part B. Now in part C, they just say write down the coordinates of C. You should know that in maths, when the instruction says write down, state, this would mean you do not need any working. Alright, so like I've previously said, the coordinates of C, in this case, C is the y-intercept. Okay, how you're going to go about doing that is, there's two ways. One, to find y-intercept is substitute the value of x to be 0. Two, you just look at the constant. Okay, so let's just do as what we've done before, right? At C, x equals to 0. Okay, so sub in x equals to 0 in this equation here. The value of y is going to be -0 squared take away 2 times 0 plus 8. So naturally, this first two terms will be 0. So the value of y will be equals to 8. That would mean that your value of y-intercept is also 8. So they ask you to write coordinates. So the coordinates of C is going to be 0 for x coordinate and 8 for y coordinate. So that answers question number 5. All right. Now, moving on. Okay, I'm going to skip question 4 because it's just catching. Right, moving on, we are looking at question 3. Now, if you look at question 3, they have given you the equation of the curve, and please bear in mind that if you expand this, it's going to give you a negative x squared. So that's why it's a set face. All right, same thing, it cuts the x-axis at A and B and the y-axis at C, and they give you this line. Now note, this is not line of symmetry, it's just a line that cuts the curve at point D. Okay, so coordinates of A and B would just be solving for your intercepts at x-axis. So that means you're solving for your x-intercept. The value of y equals to 0. So you have x plus 2 equals to 0, or 6 take away x equals to 0. So you have x equals to -2 or x equals to 6. Okay, so if you look at here, look at this point, A and B. A is actually at the negative portion, B is actually at the positive portion. That would mean that the value of A is -2, the value of B is 6. Okay, C is just solving for your y-intercept. So at y-axis, x equals to 0. So meaning to say, you go and sub in, your y value is going to be 2 times 6, which is 12. Right? So that just means the value of C is actually 12. And then they want the maximum point. So please take note, the maximum point will occur for the x value, it will be in between these two. Okay, so for part D, right, the x coordinate will just be the midpoint of the two x-intercepts. So it's -2 plus 6 divided by 2. So this should give you x equals to 2. Now, to find the value of y, you've got to sub in x equals to 2 into the equation of the curve. So y is equals to 2 plus 2 is 4. And then sub in 2 here, you will get 6 take away 2 is again 4. So the value of y is 16. Okay, so your maximum point is going to be 2, 16. And then they ask you to find the coordinates of D. Now, D is actually the line of intersection between, the point of intersection between the line x equals to 4 and the curve. So what you do is you just sub in x equals to 4 into the equation. You should get, okay, so part E at D, x equals to 4. That would mean that y is equals to 4 plus 2 is 6. And then 6 take away 4 is going to give you 2. So that's 12. Okay, correct. So y is equals to 12. All right, so here you've got the value of y to be 12, and it is obvious that the x coordinate is just 4. Because here you see x is just equals to 4. You may wish to sub back in y equals to 12, you still get x equals to 4. You can do that on your own. Okay, so the coordinates will just be 4 and 12. Right, so if you realize the point C and point D, actually they've got the same y value or y coordinate. Okay, so moving on to question number 2. Okay, you're given this. Okay, sorry, question 2 also I'm not going through. It is just sketching of graph. Now we're looking at question 1. All right, so question 1, they ask you to write down. So again, write down means no working needed. The equation of line of symmetry. So this is what we've done before. Just observe that your x coordinate for the turning point is going to be 2. So therefore, the line of symmetry is x equals to 2. Actually, you can just observe midpoint of 1 and 3 is 2. So line of symmetry is x equals to 2. It's a vertical line. Okay, then they say state. So again, state no need working. The x-intercepts, it is just looking at the diagram 1 and 3. Even if they don't give you the diagram, then you can do your working. Solve for x-intercept by putting y equals to 0, then solve accordingly. Okay, y-intercept, since they say state no working required, the y-intercept just be y equals to 3. Okay, so this one, I think I'll write it as x equals to 1 or x equals to 3. Okay, so that's it for your application questions, right?